All right. Okay. So people are joining us. Hello, everyone. Oh, great to see some familiar faces. Hi, Dave. Dave Bronze. I'll be seeing you at the Birmingham Guitar Show next weekend, right? So, right. Oh, geez, it's filling up quick. So, guys that have just joined us, I've just updated the link on the pages that brought you here with a YouTube link. So if you prefer to watch on YouTube, some guys like to do that. They can put it on the TV or put it on their phone. That link is now live at that link that you just had, guitarvivo.com/hybrid stream. There's now an option to check it out on YouTube. So, guys, we'll give other people a few minutes to join us. So what we can do now is get a bit personal. If you guys want to get in some questions early, you want to let us know where you're tuning in from, go test out the chat, and we'll go through some of those. We'll say hi to some people. Let us know where you are. And what you want to get out of this session, what questions you might have for Brett. Brett, how are you doing today?
Good. All right. I'm awake. I'm coffeeed up. So yeah, it's all good.
You guys might hear me whispering a bit because my little one is asleep in the room next door. So
man.
I'm on my best behavior not to get too excited and not to hype up too much. But okay, so this is actually, I was thinking about this today. This is kind of like a full circle thing. Guys that have been on my live streams before, I say this every time. I get to work with some of the coolest people. I get to work with guys that I looked up to when I was learning how to play, guys that influenced my playing, and all that kind of stuff. And this is exactly like, this is peak one of those times where I'm like with the guy that I remember. Actually, this is okay. I'm getting a little bit distracted, but because we've got a few minutes before other people get logged in, I'll tell this one quick story. I'm with the guy that I was a huge fan of when I was 15, 16 and growing up. Brett and I hooked up professionally through some mutual friends maybe 3 years ago, and we've been
Yeah,
working
about
on this
three
book
years ago.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been working on this book together, and a couple of weeks ago, I we I decided, oh, we've been working through email. I'll message Brett on Facebook, just for the first time ever because I was on there, and I opened up Messenger, and there's this cringy message from 2011 or something of me going, "Hi Brett, I saw on your website that you might be giving lessons online." um, I've tried emailing and I'm trying to get through. I would love to have some lessons. I immediately deleted that and then messaged you again going, "Hey, this book thing's coming up." But yeah, so this is genuinely one of those moments, childhood hero moments, where I've got to work with someone and also create something that we're really proud of and we're really excited to share with you guys. We'll talk more about that later. But first, yeah, Brett, it's quite early there, right?
Yeah, it's all right. It's 9 o'clock. I usually get up pretty early anyway. It's lovely living here in the country, so I like to see the morning. So nah, no biggie. I'm fine.
Awesome. So, um, the obviously the thing we're here to talk about today is hybrid picking. It would be really helpful if you guys could just do a little stock take in the chat. Tell us if it's something you've worked on a lot or if it's something you're really new to, because that will help us guide where we're going. If we see there's a lot of people that are quite advanced, and I presume a lot of you are, well, knowing some of these names, a lot of you guys are some big Brett fans. I can't imagine you've not done some stuff before with it. So let us know in the chat if you've done much hybrid picking. Brett, why don't you give us a little intro to how you kind of came across the technique? Because I think you were one of the first few people to really do it in the rock genre, or at least in the fusion genre.
Yeah, my. Well, obviously it's been around for ages. I mean, the country guys have all been doing it for ages. The jazz guitarists. I mean, picking fingers. It's been around for a long time. It was for me. It was just something that happened quite naturally, and I didn't even realize it was happening until one day I was playing and this finger here decided to join in when I you know what I'll go to my two camera shot here so because I got a so there you can this finger here decided to move to the next string for me. It's probably why I'm such a lousy alternate picker because I guess I got lazy from always using the other finger to do it. But and then when I was trying to play acoustic guitar pieces when I was young, a friend of mine gave me a Leo Kottke album, and it just blew my mind. And I was trying to figure out his stuff, and I was trying to do it with a flat pick and these other three fingers, and I just for the life of me couldn't figure out why it was so hard. But I because back in the old days in the 70s, you never got to see anybody. You know, we had to learn everything by ear, unless you were lucky enough to see something on TV on one of the two channels we had back then, or if someone of that caliber came to your hometown or somewhere you could see them. It was really rare. It was hard to do. So a lot of times you were flying blind in a way. And I just assumed he was using a pick because that's the only kind of guitar playing I'd ever seen or was ever taught was grab a pick. And it wasn't until years later I realised Leo was using his thumb and these three fingers, and I thought, well, that's a much stronger grouping. So I guess I developed some facility in these fingers. And the song I always bring up, because it is a pivotal thing, it was a Black Sabbath tune, if you can believe that. It was off my brother bought the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath album, and I just loved that. And there was this beautiful, the very last song, I think it's called Spiral Architects, fantastic tune. It's one of the greatest songs that Sabbath ever did, one of the best songs I've ever heard, actually. And Tony Iommi does this beautiful finger-picking classical guitar style intro to it. And I remember trying to learn it, and I think Tony would have probably played it in proper classical style with his thumb and these three fingers, and definitely not used this guy. Um, but I was trying to play it with the pick and these other three fingers, and the piece went. It was like so it was that kind of rolling. He did this. It's a beautiful piece of music. It was really nice. It really captured my imagination. I remember trying to play it, and it'd be sort of like this. It'd be, and I thought, oh man, I gotta work on this little finger guy. I gotta get him up to speed, otherwise I'll never be able to play this. Without actually realizing that, I don't think many people really bothered with that finger. I mean, a lot of the country players I saw mainly use the pick and these two fingers, the second and third, and all the fingerstyle players I saw use the thumb and the other three fingers. So that was the strong grouping. I think the little finger. Someone told me that the little finger and the third finger share a tendon, and that's why they're a bit weak. So, or they can be weak. And I mean, look, they still are for me. Even though there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but it can be done. I think they can be strengthened up a lot. But years later, when I started to tour with a singer here in Australia named John Farnham, and sort of get to meet more people and more players got to see me, everyone kept remarking on the fingerstyle stuff, and I never took any notice of it, and no one around my hometown ever took any notice of it because it was just the way I played the guitar. But yeah, it wasn't until later that people kept bringing it up and saying that's really unusual the way you're doing it, and then eventually when I got to America in the 90s, after sort of touring a bit over there, the guys at REH Video back then, it was just at the moment when it changed from REH Video to DCI, Warner Chappell, I think, Warner Chappell Video. And they wanted me to do an instructional video for them because that was sort of the thing everybody did back then. And I did, it was called Rock Fusion was the name of the video. And I mainly focused on my legato technique and hybrid picking technique. So, and the other pivotal moment for me was really in about 1989, early 89. A friend of mine gave me Frank Gambale's first sweep picking video, the very first Frank Gambale video. It might have been called Monster Licks and Sweep Picking. I can't remember. But yeah, just seeing what Frank was doing just absolutely blew my mind. But the thing that really did blow my mind was even, like, I mean, I loved the sweep picking was just incredible, but unapproachable for me because it was a bit late in the game for me to try and learn that. But when I saw the way Frank would organise the notes on the fretboard, and I thought, I wonder if I could use the finger picking the hybrid picking to use some of Frank's ideas, and it actually worked out. It was a really fantastic thing. So yeah, I did an interview with Frank about 6 months ago because we're actually good friends. I got to know him a lot when I was living in Los Angeles, but yeah, I never get tired of telling him how much it meant to me to see his video and how much I stole from him. It's great because, and he loves it. You know, he loves to know that he's been an influence on somebody who actually sort of did something different, moved away from the sweep picking because inherent in sweep picking is a very distinctive sound, and it's very hard not to sound like Frank when you do it. Um, and the one thing about the hybrid picking is it has its own kind of unique sound as well, or finger picking in general, really. The minute, and I do like the sort of tactile feeling of having my fingers in touch with the guitar. Um, that very recent Rick Beato interview with Matteo Mancuso and Matteo Sasato. We always get them mixed up, but Matteo Mancuso, he gave him a pick and said, "Here, use this," and he said it felt strange. I think he sort of said something like that. It felt like he was away from the guitar. He wasn't attached to it anymore. So sorry, guys, I talk a lot. You know, once I get going,
I
I
mean,
don't shut up. So
we're kind of here to hear you talk and hear you play a little bit, but um, this is well, there's a lot of really interesting things there. The first is that you apply hybrid picking to very vertical intervallic playing, which like these kind of arpeggios, which typically are swept. Most guys, when they hybrid pick, it's more of a just going to the next string, just doing like one string at a time. It's more of a scalar thing. But when you do it, there's scales and there's jumps and there's triads and everything in there as well. Um, so
go
that's
back.
to me is one of the things that stands out. But I think that also makes the unique part of your sound, which is you're playing some of the melodic vocabulary that Frank has, but you're not sounding like him because you're doing it with hybrid picking. And I think that's something
And
that's incredibly unique to you.
I made a conscious decision not to try and take Frank's vocabulary either, because well, a lot of it's out of my reach anyway because of the
Hmm.
nature of how Frank can sweep pick. But in a way, I sort of deliberately tried to steer away from people's actual vocabulary because I'm a bit of a sponge when it comes to their phrasing. Like, you know, with Alan Holdsworth, I mean, when I heard Alan, because I was always a legato player, I never really understood that people could even alternate pick to the degree they could. And I was quite shocked when I found out that I was nowhere near it. Like, I mean, when I saw some of the amazing pickers that were out there, even Eddie Van Halen, I never realized he was picking all those notes. He's such a phenomenal alternate picker. Um, but when I heard Alan, I thought, well, this is great because I really thought I'd got it wrong and that legato playing was not doing it properly. But when I heard Alan, I realized that it was a sound. It was just a sound and an approach. And Alan was a phenomenal alternate picker as well. Not many people know that, but he could also pick all those notes. He just chose to play legato because he liked that particular sound. But once I sort of got into that and then saw Frank's approach, it was like I said this to Frank, and he had a really good laugh at it because I said when Alan very briefly mentioned in an interview that he played four note per string scales, and I was very young when I read this, like about 16 or 17, I think I was when I first heard of Alan, and I was scouring around trying to find interviews, and he just said that's all he said was I use four note per string scales, and that was it. He never gave anything away. He never really said anything about anything. He was a man of few words when it came to music, and so I thought, okay, well, I guess that makes sense. So I set about trying to do that, like trying to that sort of thing. And at first, I started to work out shapes for it, and and after a while, I thought that's missing. I'm missing the point here. Like the point of it is to give you movement. It's to give you movement around the neck. I was glad I sort of had the common sense to realize that because I was already stuck in shapes and pattern world. I thought, well, we want to break out of that. And but it was hard because it pushed me into unknown territory on the fretboard. So I realised I really had to get my interval recognition better and my fretboard knowledge better. So there was a lot of crashing and burning where I'd hit wrong notes and quickly adjust by a half step, usually about a half step, and that's where the chromatic stuff crept into my playing. So Alan gave me movement this way, I felt, and I only had a few sort of brief arpeggio ideas that I do with the finger picking, because when I did study classical for about a year, when I was about 17 to 18, and I really did love that technique of the I love that rolling motion of and also the like the fact that you could play all the notes at the same time as opposed to a strum. And so when I'd go back to playing electric guitar with my pick, I'd just naturally be. I just started using my fingers in conjunction with the pick. And so I had some facility there, and I would sort of do little. I had licks where I'd do. It was mainly forward movement. But then when I saw Frank's video and I saw him doing some of this stuff and going back and forth, I thought, could it work? And I thought, well, I thought, man, I can do it. I can actually go back and forth with these fingers. And all of a sudden, the whole universe exploded because now I had movement this way. And when I was interviewing Frank, you can see the interview on my YouTube channel. It's quite funny. I said, yeah, I said this. If I play for people, I say Alan, and I go, and then I might go like this. I go Frank, Alan, Frank, and he just laughed and said, "Hey, it's the Frank and Alan show." And I said, "It pretty much is. Like if I had to just boil my whole approach to moving around the instrument down to just two people, it'd be Alan Holdsworth and Frank Gambale, just because of the unique way they looked at the thing. Like they're so singular like that. So that's kind of how hybrid picking really helped me just get more access on the instrument. It really worked for me. And I'm not here to try and sell it to anybody. It's more just a way of thinking, really, and that was the device that led me down that path. But you could think the same way if you alternate picked or didn't use a pick, or if you sweep pick. It's the more just the fact that this particular technique really changed my mindset. And when I saw a musician like Frank, I kind of like the fact that when I saw him sweep picking all this stuff, I didn't necessarily think, well, that's too hard. I can't do that. I sort of thought a way around that problem and decided to use another technique, and it just opened up a whole new universe for me. It was brilliant.
That's amazing. I think that's a good lesson on how you can combine influences and come up with something that's completely unique. Because I wouldn't say that when
Absolutely.
we listen to you, we just hear we don't hear that switch going off that you might think that you might hear in your own playing, or that you might be aware of, should I say? Um, One thing that I know everyone always asks about this on every hybrid picking video, is about what you're using to strike the string. Whether it's flesh or nail, if you're trying to pluck away or if you're trying to glide through and do like a rest stroke. Could you talk a little bit about what's actually making contact?
I do have nails. I'll see if I can get. Where's the camera? Yeah, I try to. Oh, it's not too focused, is
Or
it?
maybe camera two, swap to camera two. Oh
Like
no,
the
no,
right hand.
the iPhone. There you go. We might see it better on that.
There you go. Yeah, and they're not crazy long. I try to keep them shorter. And the reason for that is I've had the privilege of getting to know Tommy Emmanuel quite well, being a fellow Australian, and and Tommy just being the fantastic, gracious person that he is. He's open to talking to crazy fans like me. But I was chatting to him many years ago, and I said, "How long are your fingernails on your right hand, Tommy?" And he said, "Oh, I don't have any nails." He said, "Just calluses." And I don't know if you know a fantastic guitar player named Joe Robinson. He's another Australian player, very young and just an absolute virtuoso, another certified guitar player, pretty much. And I asked Joe the same question because he's sort of like almost like a protege of Tommy's. And I said, "Any nails, Joe?" And he said, "No, no, no, it's all flesh, no fingernails." And during the pandemic back in 2020, I was nearly going to. I thought I should just man up and chop the fingernails off and get the calluses, and because it really is frustrating if you break a fingernail. It's all my all the people that I've heard that play with pick and fingers or fingers and have nails talk about that dilemma when you bust a nail. It's a real drag. But because I keep them short and I sort of practice on acoustic a little bit, I do start to get a callus. I've got a pretty good callus on this little finger at the moment because I was drilling an acoustic tune that I was working on for a different reason, but it actually is a great drill for hybrid picking. So I mean, yeah, Tommy said like he's got to play hard 2 hours a day every day, otherwise he loses the calluses. And but when you listen to him play, you'd swear it's fingernails. So I mean, for me, it probably is the flesh of the finger, and then it probably follows through with the nail at the end. But it's sort of you can adjust it. So if you want a softer sound, then just because I'm using quite a bit of sustain here, I've got like it blends in really nice with the legato stuff to where, like you were saying, Luke, I don't actually have that switch going off anymore. I don't even make a distinction between the Alan and Frank thing. To me, it's just one thing now. But when I describe it to people, that's the descriptive terms I use. But the other thing I love about the hybrid thing is that snap you can get. Like I really love doing the. Sometimes I'll even grab the string between the pick and the first finger and get that. It's got a very distinct sound, which harkens back to the country thing, I think, like the chicken picking sound that the country players do, and it's a really great texture to have. So because you're doing it with your directly with your fingers, it becomes so instinctual. You start to use it just expressively rather than really thinking about it.
One of the
But
amazing things is,
I just want to mention that
yeah, go for it.
the reason I bring up the no fingernails thing is just in case there's any players out there that like to do two hand playing, like my friend TJ Helmrich. Because yeah, TJ said he could never use uh, fingernails because they got in the way of his technique. He's the greatest two hand player in the world as far as I'm concerned, and he. So if anyone was ever concerned that fingernails might get in the way of that stuff, you don't need them. You can work around that.
Well, the fun thing about that is if you are doing TJ style stuff, that also builds your calluses. So you get the
Yeah,
calluses
that's
from
right.
that, then you
Yeah,
can you can
you get
have a good
calluses
tone when
from
you
that
pluck.
too. So
Yeah, so I just want to point out maybe the amazing variation you get in attack because mentioning TJ, I'll be walking the dog and I'll be listening to you and him in headphones, like live shows, but I can't see you. And if I don't pay attention, I could be thinking I'm listening to him. But so for reference, he's playing completely legato, two hands, no pick, no attack, yeah, no transient on the note. But you're able to play with such a legato feel and such a soft attack at times as well as that real pinch and pluck chicken picking sound. It's incredible.
when we were working together, TJ and I started working together as far back as 1990. And I remember when I first met him, he heard me playing on an album I was doing with a band in Los Angeles called Nelson. And he heard an outro solo section that eventually got cut from the album, which was really sad. But he heard what I was doing and he thought I was two hand tapping. And he thought, oh man, this guy from Australia's onto my stuff. I better check him out. And when we met, he was really surprised to hear that I wasn't really doing any of that in this particular instance. It was just sort of Alan Holdsworth style legato stuff. And
That's
when I went to TJ's apartment and we hung out, and he just sat there and did this stuff, and I went, man, someone finally figured it out. Someone actually mastered this, and he really was. He had it down. Like I mean, I know Jeff Watson used to do it back in the '80s with Night Ranger, and Jeff was great at it. He had some amazing technique, but TJ could actually improvise all night like that. Like it's sort of like if you threw me a guitar, I'm gonna start playing it, picking fingers and the way I play. It's not like I'm secretly a great alternate picker and I do this as a gimmick or something. This is how I actually play the instrument. I can't play it any other way, unfortunately. And TJ was
well,
the same with his two hand approach. That's how he played the guitar. So
that makes me feel better to know that even TJ got caught out. I was thinking maybe it's just my ears and I'm not hearing things properly. But if it fooled him, that makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah, it was funny. I think it was just because I wasn't. I suppose I was a little different even back then as a legato player because uh, I'd hear people like Satriani and who's obviously amazing and all that doing the legato thing, but Joe had a different way of approaching it. Like it was a different rhythmic feel and a different sort of sound to it. Whereas I liked the way Alan did it, where it was he had rhythm to it, like in a pulse
Yeah.
and sort of a time. Joe's was more freeform, almost like a John Coltrane kind of approach. Really, I think that's probably what he was going for. But Alan, I like the way Alan could sit in a pocket and play it, and I tried to get into that too. So, and I think that's when TJ heard it and he thought I was doing the two hand tapping thing. But and back then too, I was trying to really go for that Alan thing where it was uniform, like you got this uniform dynamic. But then I started playing a Telecaster in the late '90s, and there's something about tellies, man. You play those things and they will change your playing. And this guitar, actually, this Strat, my mother bought me this guitar when I was 13. I've had this guitar since about 1976. And everything's different on it now. The neck is different and the pickups and the bridge, everything just broke and all that sort of stuff. So, but it was actually in pretty good condition when I got it. It was actually quite a nice looking guitar when I got it, and I did all this to it. Everyone asked me
Well,
if
now
it's
people pay a
relic, and I said,
premium to get one that looks like that.
"Yeah, I know. Yeah, people say, is that a relic?" And I go, "No, it's a relic like the guy playing it, mate. It's got
Right.
some years,
So,
got some years on it." Um, but yeah,
some miles.
I wanted to go back to the Strat after about 7 years ago when I was playing in John Farnham's band, and our other guitar player Stuart Fraser became ill with cancer, and we sadly lost him. But Stuart used to always play a Strat, and I need to cover two parts, so I went back to the old Strat, and so glad I did. It's beautiful. I'm playing this again because my mum forked out a lot of cash for this thing back in the '70s. This was an expensive guitar back then, so I promised her I'd never give up, and I never did. I'm still trying. So, yeah, there's something about going back to a more vintage instrument that changes. It changed my approach anyway. Because this guitar's sort of also set up. I play slide guitar, so it's got a slightly higher action and all that. It's not really set up for high speed shred or anything like that. So I've sort of come to embrace the dynamic difference of a note. Like I actually like, rather than going for a passage that sounds all the same dynamic, I sort of like the difference between like a sort of a. I like the difference in how some notes pop out and others don't. So I
Well,
think now
actually, that's
if TJ and I
oh
played together now, we would sound very distinct from each other.
yeah, I bet. I was actually going to see if we could. We've got a couple of camera angles set up, and I'd love to know which one you guys prefer when Brett's playing. Could you swap to the other camera angle that's just the hands, and
Just
just
the
have a
right
little
hand?
noodle there, and tell us if you guys prefer
Yeah.
that to
So
the other one?
so
Awesome. Okay, we'll go back to the original angle. So I think after that playing example, that's inspired me with a lot of questions, and you guys have a lot of great questions in the chat. Basically, well, Brett has written this book, and in me working on it with him, boy, do I have some questions. There are some funky things happening. God, I wish I'd have had this book when I was 15, because up until starting this project, I considered myself a pretty nifty hybrid picker. And now I picked up the guitar stand and tried to play one of the exercises. I'm like, oh, that's a big gap in my playing. So I've got some questions for you, and I'd like to start with a couple from the chat because they'll lead us in nicely. The first one is, can you talk a little bit about how you're muting when you're hybrid picking? Because obviously you're not technically moving the hand up and down like some players to cover all the strings. Are you rolling onto the strings as you do those pick strokes or finger
Yeah, yeah,
strokes?
that's it's sort of how I mute when I play slide as well. It's like because I've watched Derek Trucks play, and Derek doesn't use a pick, and these low strings, I think he mutes them with his thumb when he's sort of playing up the top here. And whereas I have to use the heel of my hand, and I mean it's not totally accurate. It's quite it's a little bit touch and go sometimes, but yeah, the heel of my hand is trying to keep everything quiet because I don't use this the hair tie scrunchy thing, and which to me is an art form in itself. When I watch the way guys flick it on and off so effortlessly, it's pretty amazing. It's just a reflex. I don't think they even know they're doing it sometimes, but it is a great, it's a really elegant solution to a problem, which is just muting. But yeah, a lot of the muting has to come from if I play from the low strings to the high. I'll try and get my angle right here. So now this finger here is this index finger here is in fact I'll go to the just this camera. Hang on to this one just for a moment. This finger is sort of keeping this quiet, which once again slide playing. It's sort of so the and then as I move down, my heel and my hand here will rest on those lower strings. So now by the time I'm there, I'm hoping I can at least cover that guy with the heel of my hand. So, and then that's being covered with this guy. It's one of those by any means necessary, whatever it takes, try and keep things quiet. But I'm not successful at it all the time. Sometimes it really does sound like a guy building a shed out the back. It's a bit noisy. Do you know I years ago I just want to talk about muting and how some people are one person in particular. It was obviously here from another planet, and that was Alan Holdsworth because years ago I played on a Planet X record called Quantum, and Alan was actually supposed to do the whole album, and he only ended up doing 2 songs. And Virgil Donati asked me to fill in and do the other tracks. And quite a few years ago, back in about 2008, I went to India and played the songs with Virgil, just the two of us to backing tracks, and we did a few gigs there. And in the process, Virgil sent me the stems from the album. Even though I'd recorded all the tracks, I had to give all that to him. I couldn't keep them. And he sent me back the stems, so it was easier for me to relearn the tunes. And luckily, Alan's solos were on the guitar stems. So I've got the 2 songs that Alan played solos on. I've got those solos isolated with his glorious, huge reverb around it, and they're just otherworldly. He is flying all over the place, playing things that no other human should be able to play. And I swear to you, there is not one extraneous noise anywhere. There's no movement. There's no string bump. There's no scraping of a string. It's like someone playing a synthesizer, a keyboard. Absolutely otherworldly technique. I've never heard anything quite like it. And Alan wouldn't be able to use the hair tie thing because he was playing a headless guitar for a start. So there's nowhere to put it and he used open strings. You can hear him pulling off to open strings. I mean, so yeah, it shows you it can be done. You can get your playing pristine clear without the hair tie thing, I think. But just got to keep trying to figure out a way to do it. But that's the methods I use is the heel of my hand and any other digit that's not being employed, try and rope that guy in and get him muted. So.
Well, actually, could we go back to the main shot? So the one of all you, no hand on the side. So talking about the heel of your hand, the other thing I noticed when going through this book is I think in the book we call it wrist glide, the fact that you're moving your hand up and down sympathetically with the strings you're targeting. You're not going for an anchored wrist approach that like some players do.
Right.
So I think the easiest way for you to access that is, could you show us some playing where you're going between, all 6 strings, and we can just see how your hand and wrist is tracking up and down with that.
So you mean this way, yeah? Like, is that what
No,
you're
no, no.
talking about? Like,
So when you're playing lines that go across all 6 strings, your right hand floats up and down, so that you always have this kind of
yeah, right.
yeah.
So if I play like a sort of a
Yeah, if you keep doing that, if we look at your elbow, we can see that going up and down as well.
The what's
So,
that? The
oh no. So while you're doing that, for people watching, if you look at his elbow, you can also see that
oh, I
is
see what
really
you mean. You
relaxed.
know. Oh shit! Terrible demonstrator. God, I play much better when I'm playing to music, I tell you. So, but yeah, like I try to sort of keep it free floating so it moves. Otherwise, I can't because I can't anchor this hand because my stretch is terrible. I'm the most ungifted person in the universe that plays a guitar to play a guitar because I've got ordinary sized hands and all my fingers are bent the wrong way and it's like if I can do this rubbish, anybody can. So it's not like I watch some people. I was watching Josh Meter on a video the other day and playing something just otherworldly, and he's got his hands look like he could start here and stretch this finger to there. I swear, it's just I think, oh man, if I could have that left hand, that would make life a lot easier. But I still wouldn't be as good as Josh, but at least I'd be able to play some chords that I can't play. But yeah, at least I can say, well, if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's I have no particular physical gift for this instrument at all. But
I think you're a bit harsh, but I'll cling on to that anyway to keep
no,
me hopefully
you got to call it
playing.
like you see it. It's
Um, so I think before we get on to some of the advanced questions that I had, particularly from working through the stuff in the book, someone's asked if you could just show us a basic primer exercise. What is stage one? Someone goes, I've been using the pick my whole life. Teach me how to do a little bit more.
well, the way I tried to structure the book, and please understand, some of these exercises are hard for me because I did not have 50 exercises. I had to come up with ideas for the book that so we'd have variation, and I even discovered some new possibilities in there where I thought, man, I should be taking these, I should be working on these every day myself, which I probably will. But I tried to structure the book where it started with the pick and just this finger. I tried to start as basically as possible, and then we sort of moved through it to where I started. We added the third finger, and then of course up towards the dusty end of the book we get to the fourth finger. So because see, if I just jumped straight in and said pick and all three fingers, it's who's going to want to deal with that? So the very first thing I ever sort of realized was the fact that this guy allows you to move upwards to the next string. Like so, sorry, I'll go back to the two cameras again. So and this sort of movement where you pick the low string, most basic thing really, like, and that is the first exercise I think, which is to pluck say the second string. I think we're playing in C. Play the second string with your second finger, and then down, up, down. That is I think that's one of the first things that I came up with, which I thought, well, this is a lot easier than me trying to alternate pick it because I could. Then you're moving around, so that is the most basic thing. If you wanted to try playing, say, just a major scale shape, like maybe where you alternate pick it all. When you move to the next string, try substituting that. It would be a downstroke. Substitute that for the second finger, so you get down, up, second, down, up. So, oh, hang on, I'll do it in 3 notes per string because then it's a uniform pattern. So. Even just, it's just basically just using that second finger to access that next string. Like that sort of thing. So the minute that next string becomes available to you, so it's just that's where that's really all that started happening with me. One day I looked down and this guy was playing along, and I thought, well, I suppose we're doing this now. And I never really questioned it. I just sort of let it happen because it seemed to feel natural. It wasn't like I saw an Albert Lee video and thought I have to learn this. It just happened one day, and I went with it. I just rolled with it. I think that's the thing too. It's like back in the old days, like I said, if you didn't see anybody, and it wasn't like, I remember the Beatles. I remember Paul McCartney and John Lennon saying they took 4 buses and a train to get to the other side of London so they could learn a diminished chord from some guy. But they knew there was a guy there that knew the diminished chord, but there was no one in my town that knew any diminished chords. There was no one. I spoke to every other guitar player that I knew because I was out doing gigs when I was 13, and I met a lot of older guitar players in the process, and none of them knew any more than me. We were all just flying blind, so just had to try and figure it all out. So when things like this showed up, I just thought, this probably happens to everybody. Don't worry about it. Just so later on, when people remarked on it, I was surprised. I thought, you mean you don't play like this? I thought everybody did. So it was a different thing.
Nice.
But
So
yeah, that's that. Just look for the next string. So
before before we go down the rabbit hole of the more advanced things, I'll do my. We've got some special offers for people that are on the stream and things like that to do with the book. So I'll get my little sales bit out of the way, and then we'll start talking more about the advanced stuff that's in the book. So for anyone who's joined us, first of all, thank you so much for tuning in with us live. The book will be out on Amazon, so you can get paperback on Tuesday. You'll all get an email if you've joined us on this live stream and you buy the paperback. Email me, luke@guitarvivo.com, and I'll send you the PDF for free while you're waiting on shipping. So on Tuesday, you'll get an email that it's live. If you buy it, send me that information, and we'll make sure you get a PDF copy too. If you just want the PDF, you can actually pre-order that now, and I've put like 20% off that. So you can go to guitarvivo.live, and the PDF will be in the store there. You can get that at a sale price anyway. So that's available for you. I'm going to show you guys a little glimpse of the book because this is going to lead into my questions. I might throw up some examples and get you to break them down. So basically the format of the book is we go through basically these pairings of exercise and lick, exercise and lick, exercise and lick. Each exercise is broken down, and then each lick puts that exercise into context. So like exercise 7, we get this pattern, and then the lick shows you that pattern. And the order of the book is, it starts off with incorporating one finger, then it adds a second finger, then it gets to advanced pick integration, which is what we're going to talk about now, because we're getting some questions about it in the chat. Then it goes back to the little finger, and then some signature sequences and some other cool stuff. So what I want to pick your brain about is what we called the section of the book, advanced pick integration. For me, hybrid picking was just my pick is somewhere and I use my fingers to go somewhere else. What you do is you use your fingers to help transition you to another point with the pick as well, which opens up a lot of crazy things. So we had someone ask, can you do some descending patterns? I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you show me a pattern where you ascend the strings with the fingers and then bring the pick to meet them and sweep back down? Do you remember this one? I think we.
Yeah, like, is that like because yeah, like when I obviously studied Frank's approach, I stole a lot of sweep picking from him. So ever since about 1989, I was using sweep picking in conjunction with the hybrid picking, whatever by any means necessary, basically. So one of the first licks, or one of the first things that happened naturally, was this sort of. I think this is what you mean, like where I'd go up in sort of fifths and. So
Yeah,
you
that
get.
kind of stuff.
So any variation on that. So And a lot of times, if I do a thing, if I might do. So hybrid pick these two down, and there's a sweep in there. So yeah, whatever whatever it takes. Obviously, ascending with the hybrid picking is really natural. It's really comfortable, and coming back down, it requires a different sort of approach. But
So
but
just for the record though, you also do descend with the fingers as well. That's a skill you've
yeah,
worked on
yeah.
and
Like
is in the book.
there's other yeah. If I do a yeah, yeah, and just playing slowly like that through things uh, is a wonderful way to do it too. Just without trying to go hyperspeed straight away. Just gently sort of finding your way, finding a pathway that works for you. I think that's the main thing about it is don't. I think that's why when we did the book, we were originally going to do like 100 exercises. And I thought, I don't have 100 exercises. And I said to Luke, how about we do an exercise and then I do an example where I play along to a backing track and give you a musical example of how I'd actually use this in some sort of context. Because, some of the exercises, if you just look at them, you'd think, well, they're boring. I mean, why am I doing this? And I thought, well, a musical example will give you an idea of what you could do with it, how you could actually take this boring exercise and make some music with it, which is important because otherwise you do question like why am I sitting here doing this? And it was always I think it's the reason this technique worked for me was because I just found my own path with it. I didn't really particularly try to copy anybody. I just sat down and was left to my own devices and started to work on it. And eventually I thought, well, this is working for me. I feel good playing these particular lines, and that's how you'd sort of sit and see what the potential is. Like I'd start with that, and I was like, where could I go from there? I could go up. Like I said, if I was playing to actual music, it'd make more sense because um, I think you'd hear me how I play. I just basically play around blues phrases because I grew up on blues rock. So that's kind of what I grew up wanting to be the next guitarist in Thin Lizzy or Bad Company. And then I heard Larry Carlton and Alan Holdsworth and Eddie Van Halen, and it all changed. But that's sort of the foundation of what I play, and it's just got, which sounds strange when you consider all the shred stuff I've done and everything, but that really is the cornerstone of what I do. And in amongst all the fast stuff is basically just blues rock licks. I just wanted to be the next Mick Ralphs or something. So
So someone's asked about how you incorporate the hybrid picking with scale based lines. Is that how you went about developing it? You would
that's
just
right.
pick.
That's exactly it. I'd look at a scale based line like a I don't know if you'd call this horizontal, or I sort of refer to this as vertical in a way, mainly because the notes go up and down, I suppose, in pitch. And I sort of see this as horizontal. I don't know if we even need to talk about that. But um, once I started getting into the Allen process of the 4 note per string thing, and it wasn't all about scales either. Like instead of just going, I'd change it to so. And there you go. There's the hybrid thing coming in already. So it's the Frank and Allen show again. So you've got there's Frank, Alan, Frank. So yeah, I just look for pathways and and possibilities. Like I'd start with a really simple phrase, like say if it was an E Dorian sound, so that and so I'd say start here, and I go, there's one, and then like I'd look at things like if I do this, I could go to the next string, or I could do a pull off and go. I think that was the other thing that Alan said in an interview as well. And like I said, he'd only say one short sentence, and that was all he'd give away. But he said he desperately tried not to play too many notes in the same direction. He wanted to keep the direction of the line moving, so it wasn't. And I did notice that too. Once I really got into the chromaticism with the 4 notes per string, I always referred to it as like roller coaster playing, because it just sounded like it was going like this and up and down and up and down. But whereas Alan he said he wanted to juggle the notes, and I really took that on board. So that's where when the hybrid picking and looking at Frank's playing came into view, it really helped with that, and my playing sort of became a little more abstract and disjointed. So instead of being linear, like a linear scale sort of sound like that, I wanted to get more of like to explore intervals. I've seen Carl Verheijen's a master of this approach. Eric Johnson, everybody, Scott Henderson, Wayne Krantz, you name it, Pat Metheny, I think all guitar players wanted to sort of get away from things sounding too linear, and they wanted to explore more disjointed sort of sounds. But all you're really doing is taking the next scale note and maybe displacing an octave, that sort of thing. So instead of going, you might go. Or maybe instead of going, skip a string. But if once you go down that rabbit hole, that's where ear training and all that sort of stuff comes in, because you've got to know where you're going and where you're going to end up and what to do with the note when you get there and all that sort of stuff. So, but I don't know, it just really spices up your playing and makes it a world of fun. It did for me anyway.
And I'll say you didn't hold back on these musical exercises. You really put these. I think they're called rudiments and exercises in the book. You really put them in like these creative, blended ways. So I'm really excited for people to check that out. One other thing about going back to that the way you integrate the pick with the fingers, and specifically thinking about the things that I've really took away from this book is how you would take maybe a pick and 2 fingers and create a sequence or a pattern to cover 4 strings or 5 strings.
Right.
That was definitely something when I was working this stuff out. I thought, oh no, there's a limit here. If I'm using 2 fingers, I can play, pick and 2 strings and that's it. Could you show us one of those rudiments, like a 5-string arpeggio with just 2 fingers?
Yeah, because the one thing I did want to say was that this book is, I would hope that alternate pickers would really enjoy it, because I think the one thing that really sort of holds me back is my lack of alternate picking ability. And I always think, man, if I could alternate pick like some of the great pickers I see and then shove the fingers in there, you could do so much. Because so I would really hope that when people latch onto this book, they don't think, well, I've worked so hard on alternate picking, why would I bother with this? I would say, man, embrace it, because yeah, I started to do things like I would take like just a 3-note arpeggio like this, and for me to play this just the way I would play it, I would use the pick and these 2 fingers and just go. So I just I do that. But if I was going to use the pick and just one finger, it'd be up, down, second finger, down. So that's how I would do that sort of thing. And I got to remember how I did the. So up, down, 2, 3, 2, down, up. Yeah. And then you could, I think it was up, down. How'd I do it? That was it, yeah. So downstroke, second, down, second, down, up. See what I mean? Crappy picker, but yeah, for anyone that's got a real handle on alternate picking, like if they wanted to incorporate some of the hybrid stuff, I mean, you could do some pretty wild things with it, I think. So did I
Well, yeah, I
do
mean, in the
5?
book, you show us how to cover 6 strings, things that I didn't think were possible, basically.
Really? With just picking one finger?
Oh, no, with 3 fingers.
Oh, with 3 fingers. Right. Yeah, because how'd I do it? Oh, you could do it with. There, you could do it with the pick and one finger if you. But there's all the fingers. So how'd I do it? I'd have to look it up. So, or was it one of the rolling?
Oh, there was that too, which was great.
Yeah, I can't. Might have been that. I can't remember. So, but
That was awesome. Yeah, if I'd have known that 15 years ago, I'd be a
if I'd
different
known
player.
that 15 years ago, man, it would have been nice to. Yeah, it would have been nice to build this technique from the ground up rather than latching onto it when I was almost 30. I came in really late, but it would have been great to have it when I was younger and just start there. So,
Well, that's something we've got to be. Yeah, I think I've said this to you privately in the calls, but I'm very grateful that you were there to do this before I started playing, so that I could get a leg up. Maybe if you're feeling a bit brave, could we hear a little jam over a track? Because we did set up the loop back, so that might be nice for people to hear, and maybe it'll give them some ideas for more questions.
yeah, I'll just my old faithful minor thirds jam here. Yeah, it's all ready to go. Yeah, I'll just play for a little while, and like I said, I'll just try and I'm just going to play. I'm not going to think about demonstrating anything or anything like that. So I'm just going to just jam for a while and see what happens, you know. And I'll just leave it on this shot so you can see both hands, okay. And I'll try and make sure I'm in the right position.
Oh, could you come across this a little bit more? Because I think, sorry, if you come across a little bit more, we can't see your right hand on the main cam, which would be great. So if you,
oh, you mean, hang on, yeah, it's got to get my other thing out of the way. Oh, hang on, yeah, let me just see if I can move that. That's a bit better, isn't it?
Maybe, can you move a bit towards the iPhone? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
There you go. That's the
cool?
one. Yeah, yeah.
We'll go with that. All right. that'll do. But anyway, that's sort of, if I'm just sort of playing, that's what I do. So
That was pretty awesome. um,
now,
we had someone mention, or someone's already said, you need to do a book on phrasing. Yeah, but yeah, that was a
oh,
masterclass just there.
I stole all my phrasing from Scott Henderson and Larry Carlton. So yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I love sort of. Uh, I've always sort of seen or hoped to see myself as a pathway for younger players or even older players or whatever, just anyone that to find uh, these people that I found. And because I got used to doing that when I was playing around here in this, I live in the same town I grew up in. I eventually moved back here after all these years of living all over the world. And um, I was only about 13 or 14 when we started playing in pubs around here. And so by the time I was about 17, Van Halen had come on the scene, and I found out about Alan Holdsworth through an Eddie Van Halen interview, and I knew that I was the only Van Halen Alan Holdsworth fan within about 100-mile radius, and so people would see me in the pubs trying to copy Alan and Eddie and doing all the tapping and the legato and all this sort of stuff, and they thought I invented it. They come up to me and think I was the greatest thing since sliced bread because they thought, well, we've never seen anything like this, and I but no, settle down, son. I'd have to get a beer coaster or a drink coaster, and I'd write on it with a pen like Alan Holdsworth and Eddie Van Halen, and I'd say, go to your record store and try and find these guys, and you'll thank me later. But so yeah, I really enjoyed. I would sort of seem to hear about players that would have a profound effect on me, and whenever I spoke to other rock guitarists, especially, they'd never heard of them, and I'd, nah, man, you got to get a Larry Carlton record, and you got to listen to this Scott Henderson guy, and same with Frank and everybody. It was great fun. I used to love turning people onto other players, so hope I still can.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important part of the tradition. So we've got a couple of questions that aren't specifically hybrid picking related. One that came in earlier, which actually reminds me again of the book, because you'll show us an exercise and maybe it'll be like an eighth note exercise, and then you give us the lick, and it's some sort of displaced sextuplet on the second 16th note of the third beat of bar two. Like the rhythmic control that you have over these things and your ability to well just punch in anywhere on the beat and play all kinds of subdivisions in a flowing way that goes between them. How the heck do you work on that? How did you develop that?
Oh, well, I had the privilege of interviewing Scott Henderson about 3 weeks ago, and because Scott's got a new album out called Carnival, and I think it's probably the most important guitar release. Well, it's sort of even downplaying it to say it's a guitar release. It's just that Scott is a master guitar player, but he's such a great composer. But boy, there's like classic examples of just that. Like there's one song on there. I can't remember the name of it right now. I'm having an old moment. Where just him and the drummer just go off together, and I can't even keep track of where the downbeat is. It's an absolute masterclass in exactly what you were just talking about there, and that's who Scott, Wayne Krantz, uh, anyone that's great at displacing things like that, like a 16th note off the one, and that's kind of how I'd try and work on it. Was where you just get used to the one and a two and a concept, where you'd have a strong pulse and just get used to playing instead of being always going, you go, eh, 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 eh. So it just would give you phrases like I had a great Greek drummer named Kostas Anastasiadis say to me years ago when me and TJ had a band, and Costa said, "Come on, man," he said, "you got to learn to play off the one." He said, if you could play everything on an upbeat, you got 50% more licks." And I never forgot it. I never forgot that, and I thought he's right. Like all your licks will sound brand new if you can displace them rhythmically. So it's just something I work on with either a drum machine or just a click track, where you just get used to playing at a slow tempo. What you could maybe do is just have if you have a drum machine, have a bass drum on the one, and just hi-hats on 1E and 2E and 3, and try to hit each of those, pick the same lick and try to pick and start on each of those rhythmic intervals, and you'll come up with some really fascinating stuff. Look, another way to do it, and I've done this writing songs, is where if you've got like if you use Logic or Pro Tools or Cubase or anything like that, record yourself playing a lick in 4/4. So it's just, you have the block of time of 1 bar and have a drum machine going over 2 bars. And then take that recording of yourself playing a lick in 4/4 for like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it displace it an eighth note. Just move the region back and forth in your DAW and see the effect it has on it. I've done that with melodies for songs, and where I've written, there was a song off the title track off my second album, Dark Matter, where that's right, where the melody goes, it's 1, 2, 3, and I originally wrote it like this. I originally wrote it, and I thought, geez, that sounds a bit lame, doesn't it? I like the first part. And so I just displaced the second half of it. I was experimenting with it, moving it around, and he ended up coming up with... and I thought, I like that much better. So it was just an example of how it can not only help just soloing, but it can really spice up a melody sometimes if it's displaced rhythmically. But if you find it difficult to do in real time and play, then yeah, record it into Logic or Pro Tools or something and move the region around and see what happens. And the next thing you know, you'll start actually doing it when you improvise.
Amazing. I'm just going to keep rolling through these questions if you don't mind. So someone's really easy one. Have you rolled your tone pot off a little bit? They've said like Eric Johnson does.
Yeah, well, the sound I've got set up, I'm using the Axe Effects. You can see it if I go to that camera. There it is. But what's the best angle for it? Probably, no, I don't know. Probably maybe that. Nah, probably not. I'll just go back to the one camera. My tone's down real low at the moment. It's on about 3 or 4 on the back pickup. And even my volume, I only get it up to about 8. So, and there's no tone bleed circuit in this guitar at all. So if I roll the volume back, that darkens it a little bit more. So, but it does mean I've got a lot of top end at my disposal if I want it. So yeah, I just kind of, I don't like to play with a whole ton of gain, because I feel like then the guitar's kind of telling me how to play rather than me telling it. And it's nice to have a little bit in your back pocket. So if you do need a bit more to go to 11, you know what I mean? It's like just if you want to have a little bit more when I need that little push over the edge.
Hey,
So,
I'm not doing terrible Australian accents, so no terrible English
I'm sorry.
ones,
Look, I've done so many gigs with Kofi Baker. I just fell in love with the Cockney accent. I just
someone's asked, so on the subject of tone, what's your go-to amp model in the Fractal?
well, it's probably just a coincidence because I tried them all, I think, but I ended up using a Bogner, and I think it was a Bogner Blue, I think they call it. And my favourite amp was a Bogner Ecstasy, which I had to sell when we built this house, unfortunately, but and sold it for an absolute pittance of what it was worth. But they still make them, but I'll probably never be able to afford one again, not to justify the expense anyway. So, but yeah, I ended up going for the Bogner Blue. I just really settled on that. But I tried. The quest for finding this particular sound has taken years. So yeah, it was a long journey. I think you've got to spend time with modeling gear. It's the potential in it's unbelievable, but you can't just use preset 4 and expect it to sound great. You've got to work on it.
Cool. I'll keep going. Someone's asked, well, do you use much hybrid picking in your rhythm guitar approach, or is it strictly a lead thing for you?
Oh no, I'll sort of use it sometimes, like particularly if it's a sort of a Yeah, someone asked me to play that. I'll go back to the other
Oh, you
two
read my
camera.
mind.
Yeah, and yeah. So I think I played the there was a song off the Uncle Mo's Space Ranch album. I think I did. I think I did it like that. I think so. I played the riff like that, but I suppose that's more of a lead guitar approach. But yeah, I'll definitely use the pick and fingers just without even really thinking about it. So
The
it
the
does
other
come into the
example,
rhythm playing as well. So
and your riff playing as well. So maybe not the chordal rhythm stuff, but I think you played Subway for me last time. And did you
oh
invent that riff with some
yeah,
hybrid
yeah,
picking?
that was that. I think it's F sharp, isn't it? Oh, it's weird. I haven't played this in a long time though. Yeah, it was when we were writing the tune, and that was just something that felt natural for me to do, and so I threw that out there, and TJ said, "Great, let's go with that." So we just kept going, but yeah, yeah, it's like I said, it's sort of how I play the guitar, and there's not much I can do about it really. I do try to work on my alternate picking a little bit, but uh, yeah, that's. I talked to a friend of mine who's a really good alternate picker, and he said, "Yeah, 4 hours a day should do it." And I was like, "Oh boy, I don't, I don't have 4 hours a day, just alternate picking." That's when I thought, yeah, you don't get nothing for nothing, so it's all hours, isn't it?
Um, Someone said, because maybe maybe we could talk a little bit more about phrasing. But I'll read you this question first. So many players have advised me that playing fast is a trap, but when you play fast phrases, you still have a beautiful sense of punctuation and direction. Any advice? Do you have any tips for developing phrasing and fast playing?
Well, direction, I think, you've actually answered the question yourself there. Like you've got to sort of be going somewhere, and I think when you recognise when you like, I'd love to tell you that everything I play is up here in my head, and it just sort of comes out of the guitar, but I'm afraid it's not. Like a lot of some of it is, some of it's good ideas that I either can't get to quick enough, or they're things that I recognise in the moment, and I go, oh, I should repeat that, or I should repeat it, but build it on it as a motif, and that's kind of how I work when I improvise, and I try to sort of make the first thing lead to the next thing, which leads to the next thing, and even sometimes you can hear fast phrases as a block of music, like you sort of, I suppose you play long enough and you get used to improvising long enough, I can sort of see a phrase that starts here and ends up all the way up here, and oh man, it's just the sweetest feeling when it happens. It's like that basketball and all nothing but net, and a hole in one, like a something. I don't know. It's just any other sporting analogies I can think of. When you're in the groove and you just nail it. It's a beautiful feeling when you start all the way down here. Everybody I watch on YouTube seems to be able to do it now, but me. So it's a, it's a but but look, I think that it's the same old thing of start slow and build it up. Gradually have better to have slow phrases that sound good, and then eventually have fast phrases that sound good. Obviously, that's where we want to end up. So I'll take I'll take songs like I've got a loop here that I made quite a while ago, and it's pretty fast tempo, and the natural instinct is to play fast to it, but I try to always start off playing quite slowly to it as an exercise in a way, but just to also to remind myself that you don't have to always play eighth or 16th notes when there's a fast tempo. You can play slower. So you want me to jam to it for a minute and
Yeah,
just
and
as a
actually, someone's also asked about your left hand thumb position. Could you have a jam to this and also do a little bit of jam and show us camera two, that side angle? Could you rotate a bit so we can see the back of your hand for a little bit while you're playing?
I see. Hang on. Maybe if I go to this. So
Yeah, could you give us a couple, like a few bars with this, and then go back to the main camera setup?
Oh, all right, I'll try. Yeah, that might be a bit hard while I'm playing, but I'll do
Oh
it.
yeah, you could stop and you don't have to do it mid line.
Okay, all right. Oops. Yeah, it's like the like with a tempo like that, like the temptation is to take off and just start blazing, um, and but it's really nice to sort of try to hold yourself back and play minimal notes and just even just for the sake of variety, but because it's tough. Like a lot of times people they see anyone play anything other than a blues phrase and they don't like that, and I'm like, yeah, but there can be fast playing in and around the blues phrases. Because most I don't know most musicians I hear, sax players, keyboard players, and in all walks of life, jazz, rock, the blues seems to be the foundation of what they're doing. Really, like especially in the fusion players, like they seem to all be blues based, and then they just expand that with a wider vocabulary. So, but anyway, yeah, it's a fun little loop I came up with that I like to play too.
That's nice. It was fun. It's actually a nice way to address these two questions. Someone's asked about your outside playing, and maybe specifically on that, they've asked if it was melodic minor, if you were doing any of that kind of stuff, or is it more of just a chromatic approach?
It's mainly chromatic, but sometimes I'll use some melodic minor scales. Yeah, like in that particular song, there's an E flat seven or a nine, sort of a sharp 11 type sound. So I'll use the Lydian dominant, which is a great sound. That's a great sound for even just for rock players. It's a wonderful sound because you can substitute it for a Mixolydian sound instead of playing over, like if someone's straight Mixolydian, but then if Sort of great. There's that one quirky note in there, the sharp four, that just gives it a little bit of a twist, but it's not offensive in any way. And then if there's any kind of five chord, like especially a sharp nine, like I'll think the altered scale, like which it's like melodic minor up a half step, but the way my brain works, because I'm so ear driven as a player, I almost have to think from the tonic up. So I have to think half step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step. You know what I mean? It's like I have to almost think that way, which is a real pain sometimes. It makes life really hard for me. But I always seem to be, my ears always drag me back to the central key that I'm playing in. So I hope that makes sense. But everything else, yeah, it's usually just chromaticism, like chromatic passing notes which was sort of going to be a whole other book, wasn't it? Like a whole other thing we were going to talk about. But yeah, if I'm going to play up to a major third, like instead of perhaps going, I'll get a bit more bang for my buck and put in. A lot of country players do it. Like I really dig country music, and I just have so much admiration and respect for the country virtuosos. So yeah, it's almost like if you want to hear the most inside bebop you've ever heard in your life, listening to the really red hot country players, and it's a great way to sort of get an introduction into that kind of rapid phrasing.
Awesome. I think there was one other question on your approach to soloing over tracks like that. Can't quite find it, but it was basically on how you approach target tones, or is that something you're thinking about when you're playing over changes?
Yeah, I tried to, and like I said, it comes from I spent a bit of time teaching at Musicians Institute, and just getting to know Scott Henderson and all the other great players there, all the other great fusion players there, and jazz players, and unfortunately, I don't play jazz at all. I have no idea, but I always loved improvising, and I've always loved that sound of some of the chords that the jazz and fusion players improvise over. And so whenever I had a chance, I'd try and ask them for advice. And that was the first thing Scott said, was just chord tones. He said, then you start there, and he said, then you can't hit a wrong note. And it's even something I try to keep in mind when I'm playing on pop tunes, because if it's a song that's around a key center, like say if it's so if it goes between those chords, goes from an E major down to a C sharp minor, instead of just playing just E major through the whole thing, which would work, all those notes are going to sound good. I can't help it. I've got I can't help it. I've just got a I'm the melodic rock guy. What can I say? It's I can't help it. I've just got to follow those chords and try to come up with a melody that works. And then in between it, I play all this other unnecessary fast stuff, I guess. So, yeah.
I think we've got one other final question, which I don't know if you'll be able to answer. Can you remember what your approach or thinking was with the crazy chromatic bit towards the end of the Loch Rannoch solo?
Oh no, I can't even remember that solo. You know, the solo I did on the actual demo for it, I think, was even more nuts than the one I did on the album. But uh, Yeah, no, I can't remember it. I'm sorry, but I can't believe we actually transcribed that. Had a uh, Toshi Someo was the bass player in the band that TJ and I had back in the mid '90s, and he's the most lovely guy and a fantastic bass player and a supremely talented and well trained musician. And Toshi transcribed that for me, and that whole solo, I worked it out note for note with tablature, but then Toshi had the job of trying to put it into rhythmic notation, and it eventually ended up in Guitar Techniques magazine. And I dropped the ball, and Toshi didn't get credited for that. So I don't know if anyone knows Toshi and they hear this, please apologize to him for me. But yeah, he's the guy that did the hard yards of transcribing that because rhythmically it was pretty weird. And um, but yeah, the full transcription does exist somewhere. So
I think I found that yeah, there's some hard things to find, but if you do some digging, you can find that. And I think TJ did a an audio lesson for his solo on, and then a crow came out,
yeah, that's
which
right.
is
Yeah,
which is yeah, floating around. I found it on on
yeah.
Sound Slice. Someone had uploaded it. Right. Oh, Dave Bronter said he has it. Um, I think that brings us to the end of our time here. So I just wanted to say, firstly, Brett, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some wisdom with us. It's been
Oh,
great
thank you.
having you here. Um, thank you to everyone who's tuned in, and thanks for the questions, everything like that. Thank you to those of you that have pre-ordered the book. And yeah, if you want to get the paperback, link will be emailed out on Tuesday. Or you can buy it on Amazon, and it'll be mailed right to your door. And if you have Prime, it'll be less than 24 hours. Um, anything else we should look out for, Brett? Any new things? Oh, you got a Patreon, right?
Yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah, come and visit me on Patreon if you want to. I'm going to try and start doing some more live streaming myself, actually, or maybe I'll just do it on YouTube where I just try and. But it'll sort of be exclusive to anyone on Patreon. But yeah, now that I've got this camera set up, I figured, well, why not? So I can sort of do it with some sort of quality now. So and it'd be good fun to do things in real time as opposed to always just uploading videos. But there's lots of lessons and stuff on the Patreon, and you can. Yeah, I'm an easy man to find. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and blah blah blah. So
Oh yeah, sorry. Someone's asked, are you doing private lessons?
yeah, sure. Yeah, if anyone wants to do one online or whatever, yeah, no probs.
And yeah, you're on Facebook, and brettgarsed.com is still live, and they can reach you through there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm an
Amazing.
easy man to track down. So
Now, but when I emailed you 15 years ago, trying to get a
yeah,
lesson,
I was a
um,
different person 15 years ago.
right, guys, thank you so much, Brett. Have a great day because it's morning there. Thank you for waking up early for this.
Oh, no worries. Thanks to everybody for joining in, and I hope you found it entertaining or amusing in some way. So thank you.
And we really look forward to getting your feedback on the book as well, and yeah, seeing what that does for you guys. So thank you all, and we'll see you next time. See
Bye.
ya.